Well, hello and welcome to the latest episode of Paranormal Lens. I'm Jamie Widener. I'm going to be your host tonight, along with my co-hosts David Deramiti and Chad Thomas. Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
How you doing?
Bad. It's the second Monday, so yeah, we made it. We were just lamenting off camera how it's been a week already, and it's only Tuesday. So hopefully this is a good break for everybody. We'll learn a little something tonight and go away refreshed and ready to hit the hump day hard and be on our way for the weekend. So, as normal, we have a topic and one of us gets to select it. The other two really don't know much about it. It's not been prompted or shared a whole lot other than just knowing the topic's going to be, in this case, voodoo. And this is my topic, so I'm going to be I'm your host tonight. But this is for me, it's a rather interesting one because as a kid, I learned about voodoo from the movies of all things, and I not knowing anything about it, being from Pennsylvania, not coming from the Louisiana area where it's a common thing, or at least more getting around the world to the various places where it is a hot spot for it. I always thought it was like a certain thing, and I won't lead too far to that because of the things I'm going to share. But my research on this topic was eye-opening because I was wrong about quite a lot of things, and that's, I guess, a good thing, because voodoo is first of all, it's a religion, and it is one that has been practiced around the world for thousands of years, and currently it is a very active practice religion as well. So let's start talking about the history a little bit of that, and then how it goes forward. So the original religion was from the kingdoms of Fan and Congo, which is now the West African region of Benin, Ghana, Togo, and Nigeria. That's the curve of Africa on the west coast side, so just underneath the hump where the Saharan area is. So it is. It was part of the trade routes for Europeans to go to India and beyond back in the day. So it was, as much as it was its own place, it was eventually touched by the European influence, and some influences of that came into voodoo as well. So firstly, the term voodoo, the word voodoo means spirit of God. So that gets to the religious aspect of it and the kind of divine sense. It is a base belief that there is one distant yet ever-present God or supreme being. So not uniquely different perhaps than general Christianity, but again, older by thousands, a couple thousand years. So it's an interesting thing that these different religions formed around the world without contact, yet have some similarities. It has priests, which can both now be at least be men and women, with primary duties of healing, holding healing rituals, to call or pacify spirits, telling fortunes, reading dreams, casting spells, and invoking protections. So it's a bit of a spiritual sense to it, which of course most religions hold a belief in the spiritual realm, and again practiced by a lot of people. But it's believed up to about 80 million people worldwide. So if you'll slide the next slide, Chad. This is a kind of an artist rendition of early days of first contact. This is something here, a witch doctor or a shaman practicing a ritual. Most of the rituals were held to contact the spirits of the dead as well. So that's quite an interesting premise that we hold on to our lost ones and kept them close to us. The movement through the trade routes and the travel points that Western Africa was a way station for a lot of ships coming from Europe and back. The European colonization. There's hundreds of years of European colonization that led to the merging of voodoo with European religions, and primarily Catholicism because it was the big one of the day. But there's other influence as well. Sadly, West Africa became a trade hotspot, a slave trade hotspot, and then the merging of voodoo and the European religions continues because folks are being taken away from their home and put on ships where they're subjected to whatever the belief of that carrier was. And as practitioners came to the Caribbean, the African element, the indigenous people of the Caribbean, everything began to merge. And believe it or not, that is the foundation and the beginning of what is known as Creole, which is a blending or melting pot of religions, cultures, and so forth. Came through the Caribbean and into North America. So get the next slide. This is an image of some of the early colonizers making contact with the tribe, doing rituals and so forth. You see the gentleman there is hopefully interested in what's happening and not planning to grab folks and take them away as the slave trade. This image is a little bit of the early belief of what voodoo dolls looked like. And an interesting thing, dolls don't have to be a doll. It can be a lot of different things. And it's the voodoo doll itself is a tool that's used to connect the spirit with spirits and for the casting of spells and the manifestation of intentions. So, you know, these are Western African influenced. You can tell by the stylation and the design. They're originally called Pwen, and they were used to invoke lesser deities known as Loa. The all-powerful supreme being was distant and not immediately present. So there were lesser deities that were believed to be the ones who were impacting daily lives and the fortunes of those in the religion. The Pwen were meant to attract the deities and gain their influence. So that's why some are very ornate and pretty. But again, they come in many forms, and they can be anything, literally, and it doesn't even have to be a physical object to have a connection to the individuals. We'll move another slide, please. This is actually a Roman object that was found, and it is the manifestation of a voodoo doll or a Pwen that was found in Europe. And, obviously this is something we're probably looking at when we think of voodoo dolls, something that's bound. It's got pins in it, hopefully not something that was meant to really impact someone negatively. But it was this idea. And then a fun fact was that the first known effigy doll, which would be considered a voodoo doll, was actually found in ancient Egypt. So, and not necessarily only a Western African or Caribbean cultural thing, but used elsewhere as well in the rest of the world. The way this works for us here in America, was back in the 1950s. There was an influx from Haiti of an item called a cashew doll, and it were dolls that were manufactured out of cashew shells and given form to shape like a doll. And then with eyes and facial features and so forth. And that became a big fad in the early 50s, so much so that back in 56 or 57, I forget which year, the government actually put out a warning about purchasing the dolls because eventually the shells would come loose and it would be a choking hazard for children. So it's one of the earlier warnings that we had in a purchase of a bulk item. Nowadays there's recalls on all kinds of things. Back then, of course, there wasn't so much of this, but there were children who were hurt because, of course, putting things in their mouths and the shells come off and then they choke. So perhaps something to do with voodoo after all. I don't know. And then once the cashew dolls started taking off and being a thing, doll makers started to pick up on the idea and started creating actual dolls. And if you Google voodoo doll now, you'll find a gazillion options out there. Of course, all of which are manufactured somewhere else. So go to the next slide. So another representation of what a doll could have been. This one has African influences, obviously, but a pretty cool idea. Next slide. So voodoo became Americanized as early as 1932 when this film came out. And guys, if you'll look at this very closely, do you recognize perhaps who this could be?
What do you mean?
Think of the eyes. Look at the eyes and the stare. The actor who played in this film is actually Bela Lugosi.
Bela Lugosi, yeah. I used to have this poster, actually.
Oh, you do? Okay, I noticed the smile. So this is the earliest known representation of voodoo in film, again from 1932. So it's quite old. But with that, and then bringing Bela Lugosi to the screen, of course, is always cool. So next slide. This is where I come in. And I remember this from the early 70s, mid 70s, probably a film I shouldn't have seen at that age, being like 5, 7, 8, 8 years old, something like that. But I was terrified of all the stuff that was going on, but it piqued my interest. But it's if you haven't seen it, it's cool. It's a great old James Bond film. But Live and Let Die, and a great soundtrack, by the way. it was one of those ones that influenced me. And again, a big mainstream presentation of voodoo to the world. Next slide. And even Disney got involved in this. The Princess and the Frog, if you've seen it.
Oh, sorry, I did that.
It's okay. Princess and the Frog, great film, fun film to see, family friendly, but deeply influenced in voodoo, in Louisiana Bayou and so forth. So
Dr. Facilier in that movie.
Yes. So, and moving on to that, that more influence, of course, is the Halloween season, and you got a taste of this on the slip of the slide there. But they're the voodoo princess, the witch doctor, all of that stuff. Next slide. These are representations of what voodoo is presumed to be in the Americana element. Nothing really true to form by what the religion is about, nor any of the representation of how the dolls were used. One more slide, please. And if you ever see the Voodoo Ranger beers out there, they have some crazy cool cans. Good product too, for that matter. If you're interested, you can get out there and find it. But it's they obviously put that representation of the dead, an element of voodoo with it. The next one is one of my personal favorites, Voodoo Donuts. You get them out there.
Portland, Oregon.
Yep, in Portland, Oregon, exactly. And the next one is my personal favorite. This is actually one of the donuts you can get, and it's jelly filled. So as you chew into him, he starts gushing red jelly. So it looks like you're actually eating a person. It's a little bit of fun. And lastly, a New Orleans product, Zaps and the Voodoo chips. They're a little spicy for some, but delicious nonetheless. And they have quite a few other products that fall into the line. They play on the voodoo element and the New Orleans theme in all of their stuff. So that takes us to how this all connects to the paranormal. We got one last slide, please. What voodoo is and what we perceive it to be are two uniquely different things. But when we look at perception is reality. And the belief is that voodoo dolls can control a person or cause them harm at the desire of the doll owner, right? We see that all the time. You get a lock of hair, some personal object, a button, a pin, something like that, and then you make a doll out of scraps of things, sticks, whatever, and then you can control that person by and harm them even by putting pins or elements to the doll. That is truly a Hollywood idea. Not really what the true emphasis of the kind of spiritualness of voodoo. But again, we see this all the time in the cinema. We see this all the time in the media elements. And again, that's what people generally think. Also the element of curses and spells, not something necessarily true. And the common connections to voodoo also are things like dark magic, perhaps cannibalism. Yes, there have been rituals where animals have been sacrificed, but no people. That was not part of the element. And that's not an uncommon thing for ancient religions to have as well. The animal sacrifice to the gods for rain, element breaks, things like that. Devil worshiping is considered to be part of voodoo. Not true. Again, it's a higher power. And then elements like witch doctors and even zombies are tightly connected to voodoo, which are again Hollywoodization of the elements that are part of what voodoo really is. So it's an interesting thing, but it's a thing that walks closely beside the paranormal a lot of times, especially if you get down to New Orleans and Louisiana in general. I've had a chance to be in that area a couple times, and it's played upon heavily. And I'm sure a lot of tourists are relieved of their bank account funding, with the tours and all the things you can do through the cemeteries and all the the side projects of stuff. But not necessarily a real thing that directly connects to voodoo. So I'm curious, guys. I threw a lot of stuff at you there in about 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes. But what do you think? Where are your thoughts on what voodoo is and could be?
I'm sort of interested in how some of this is tied to even witchcraft and things like that. Because if you think back to the Crucible, the play The Crucible, that had a scene in it where there was a doll that was stuck with a pin and the person screamed in pain. And you're talking about dark curses. So it's interesting how the two sort of parallel.
That's me. I'm sorry.
sort of parallel each other. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. It is new. I didn't realize how much of a religion it was. We, like you said, we do see all the commercialization of it, the Hollywooding of it. So to learn that it was a religion and it came from Africa as a higher being, not just curses and dolls and things like that. That's really interesting to me.
And one of the things too that I found really, well, not surprising. I shouldn't say that, because colonization has, tramped down a lot of things that were original or of origin to the cultures that was being colonized. But there is somewhat of a blending of Catholicism specifically, but even other worldly religions to what is now considered the Voodoo religion, because of the high contact and suppression even of those other things. We saw that here in the North America, with the Europeans coming over, the indigenous folks. They kind of got absorbed in some ways into the presence of the white settlers who were coming, which obviously is not a good thing necessarily, but it was a overpowering almost, because of volume and intent, and in that the original African culture, having been pulled out of Africa literally by the slave trade to come into the Caribbean, and then the existence of an indigenous population there, and that migration emerging, and impacting and influenced over top of that by the white element of Europe. It's really, and totally a side thing perhaps even, but the Creole element of this is uniquely, organic, because of intent. It had to be, and the perseverance and the survival element of, who I am and what I believe, how that carried through for these folks who were put into very difficult and unwilling situations, is amazing and impressive. The sense of purpose and being and unique in self, how that spirit survives is really cool. And this is something that shows that it can carry on. Sorry, I'm talking too much. Dave, what do you think?
My first experience with actual voodoo, learning about it, came in the form of a Wes Craven movie from when I was a kid, called The Serpent and the Rainbow.
Yes, I was going to add that slide. That's a little dark.
Yeah, the Serpent and the Rainbow, and it was actually, the way that they heralded, the way that the practitioners looked at it. I mean, it was probably closer to reality in the specific context in which it dealt than many other films, like the Hollywood versions of a lot of the stuff. But I actually have a friend. She lives in New Orleans. She is a practicing voodoo priestess, and it's a really mind-blowing experience to take what the preconceived notion of voodoo is and actually, watch somebody practice and see that, the belief system is no more valid or invalid than, the next belief system. So it's very much a, kind of do no harm mentality that has been, what's the word I'm looking for? That has been used for very Hollywoodized. I'm not very fictionalized, very Hollywoodized. But do I believe in it, and do I really want to mess with it? Absolutely not. I won't mess with voodoo. I won't mess with Santeria, any of that stuff.
Yep. And that's the back of the mind moment, right? Like you can know that there is, the premise would be, spirituality, healing, connection, but then the presentation that we're provided is the negativity, the black magic side of it. And that's always in the back of my mind, too. In the same spirit as you just mentioned, I'm very interested, but I don't know if I want to mess with it. without someone I trust, being involved in the process to really dive deeper. Just because I've been seated for so long with the negativity, and I have to have some help separating those two. It's still a really cool thing though, and it's amazing again how long it's been with us, in the world. But we just don't have a good grasp of what it really is, because we've been shadowed a bit by the Hollywood stylization of what voodoo is, voodoo dolls. I was trying to figure out, and I didn't have time to do this, if I could make my own doll, and it's actually rather easy to do. You just need a couple pieces of fabric and some batting, which I'm sure I have here somewhere with all the creative people I have in my house. But time was a thing, so I looked at see if I can get one from Amazon. And if you go on there and you type in voodoo doll, you will find about 65 choices, in all kinds of shapes and sizes and styles. And time was short there as well, so there's not one on its way. But it's amazing how we've become so commercialized with everything that if you want it, you can find it, online really quickly. And then there's a ton of instruction on how to use the doll once you receive it as well, just by again a Google search. So it's a known thing. And again, whether it's been being used for good or bad or whatever, that's probably up to the user for intent. But it's fascinating to me that this stuff is highly present, but yet in the background.
Seems more like an Etsy item.
Personalized when you order it.
With your name. Yeah.
Little
So,
like a Build-A-Bear.
Dave on the bottom of that on the current slide. So, but no.
What's that?
I was going to try to figure a way to put your name on this slide, but I thought better of it.
Oh, I'm certain my name's already in a mason jar somewhere, so let's not add it to the slide.
So one thing that you brought up, both of you sort of said that, I just want to build off of a little bit. You talked about we're talking about how this is a religion, and you both said it's not something you want to mess with because you don't know enough about it. So do you think other religions are looked at like that? Do you think Christianity is looked at that like that, or Hinduism or things like that? Or has voodoo now got a stigma to it because of the way it's been commercialized?
I think a little bit of both. The deeper you dive into anything, when you get into dogma, you start to get into the deeper, darker sides of it. Everything has it, especially from antiquity forward. The old religions, they all had, there was a lot of things that Catholicism was doing in the day, that would be, appalling to us today, and never have a place. So the migration of the belief system forward, and time is probably part of it, but the belief and the splintering, of religion for those who didn't like what was happening and deciding to do something different. The Protestant pull off of Catholicism is a big one, but there are many other factors in that. Even as you look at, there's a church on every corner now, and they're all a different belief system, even though they're all under Christianity. So we've gotten away from things we didn't like and did it ourselves or did a different way. So there was a reason for that, and that's kind of like the part of what I would think voodoo the same way. It has some dark elements to it because it's old and things were done differently at a time. So I could say that all voodoo dolls that were ever created were meant to connect spiritually with a deity for positivity? Probably not. Probably somebody dabbled, and that was all it took to move things in a shadowy direction. I don't think it's any different in any religious sense. And I'm probably putting my foot in my mouth here a little bit to say this kind of stuff, but I don't mean to off-put anyone or project anything other than my own opinion. But it's hard for me to believe that it wouldn't be an element in anything.
And I think that brings up another question in my head. You talked about how Christianity is splintered, how some of the other religions have splintered. Mm-hmm. Has voodoo done that as well? Are there different factions of voodoo? Are there different? Do you have your purist and your, you know what I mean? Like, are there the different levels or different commitments maybe?
I have to say yes. I didn't get enough time to dig deeper than to get beyond the history and some of the surface information. But I gleaned that much, and I think it probably has to do with where you are in the world. As much as anything, there are voodoo is practiced on every continent. So it is a global religion, and therefore I would have to think there's some variances and some splintering, maybe is the right way to say it, I guess. But there's definitely going to be some division, just based on geography and connection. All right. Anything else to add, guys? Any questions or comments?
I've just learned a lot about it. I didn't know that much about voodoo other than the New Orleans connection, and some of the movie stuff. So I definitely, you opened up a door, so now there's more to look at for me now.
Cool. All right. Well, let's see what else we're up to soon here.
All right, for some of our upcoming events with Jott-Nyx Paranormal, we've got a public event coming up on Saturday night. Tickets are still available. All you have to do is go to the Boobies Brewery webpage. We'll put that up at the end, or go to the Jott-Nyx Facebook page or the Boobies Brewery Facebook page, and you'll be directed on how to get tickets and the time of the event. We have another public on June 10th and June 24th, basically every 2 weeks. From here, moving through the summertime, we get together and lead our investigations. We had our Para Unity event this past week with Dover Paranormal, which was a big success. I think Chad and I were in attendance, and we got to work with another group, and it's always fun to see another group operate, and another group how they go about things versus our typical, techniques and procedures. So
I thought it was good to meet a new team and work with them a little bit. And it sounds like they're excited to come back from what they were saying.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we went, rather late. So some of them had to leave prior to actually getting down into the catacombs, and they had said that they want to come back, and actually that they don't want to miss. They don't want to miss out on that experience.
It's a unique experience, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and I think it was an interesting night because we connected with some spirits that we haven't connected with in a while. So I thought that was fun, but dive into that on another night. So.
Right. There was actually one that we had never interacted with before down there. It was in the catacombs, wasn't it?
No, it was in the bar level.
On the bar level, that's right. So, in the and in the room with all the mirrors, the dragonfly room.
Right.
Yeah. So, for tickets for the public investigation are available at that link, or how I directed you earlier. And then we also have our new production with moving forward, The Ghostly Truth. It's a limited series by Jott-Nyx Paranormal. We have the first one in the can and the first episode in the can and working on the production end of it. So it's going to be it's a half-hour, 45-minute segment, much in the same vein as some of the more popular paranormal shows, where we take you through an actual investigation at a location with the people who experience it. It's going to be really interesting and really worth a watch.
Absolutely.
And you can follow us on social media. Our Facebook is listed right there. We have a TikTok and Instagram and a YouTube. You can look it up, use those links, head on over, take a look at all the great stuff we have posted, and interact with us.
Yep.
And I think that's it.
Here's the page you were talking about earlier to get tickets. It looks like we've got 18 tickets left for the upcoming investigation this Friday or Saturday. Sorry, Saturday. Let's not add more to our weekends.
Yes, please.
So yeah, go out and get tickets. It's always a fun time. So.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, well, I think that wraps us up. That's a quick night for us, so everybody can move along and catch up on everything else. But we all have material to review from our past investigation. So time to move over to that and start watching and listening, catch up on everything. So thanks everybody for watching. On behalf of Dave and Chad, we really appreciate it. Drop us a comment, give us a like. Let us know you're here. And we hope to see you next week, 9:30 next Tuesday, for our next episode. Do we have a topic for next week we want to tease out?
I'm going to be the person taking care of it, and I'm thinking about crop circles.
Okay.
So, there's a lot of debate there. So I'll see what I can dig into and find.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to this. I will learn something. So awesome.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, have a great week. You too, as well as everybody out there. Thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time.
And we'll see you guys Saturday.
I'll see you Saturday. Yeah, please come on out.
Saturday.
All right.
See you there.
See ya.
All right, everybody. Good night.